We had this idea that to get massive success, you need to take some kind of massive action. That if you want incredible results, you have to make some huge, earth-shattering improvement. But what if that's just completely wrong? Let's dig into how the smallest changes, the ones you barely even notice, can actually lead to the most amazing results.
What if I told you that by this time next year, you could be 37 times better at something? I know, it sounds totally impossible, right? But this one number, it perfectly captures the huge idea we're talking about today.
So here's how that crazy math works. If you get just 1% better at something every single day, it compounds, it snowballs. And by the end of the year, that tiny improvement has made you 37 times better. Now flip that around. If you get 1% worse each day, you basically wind up with nothing. The takeaway here is so important. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. What starts out as a tiny little win can grow into something absolutely enormous.
Okay, so you might be thinking, that's a nice theory, but does that stuff actually work in the real world? Well, let's take a look at one of the most incredible turnarounds in sports history, which was built entirely on this one simple principle.
For about 100 years, the British cycling team was, well, they were pretty mediocre. But then, in 2003, they hired a guy named Dave Brailsford, and his whole strategy was something he called the aggregation of marginal gains. Basically, the team looked at everything that goes into riding a bike, and they tried to improve every single part by just 1%. I mean, they did everything. They tested different massage gels, they hired a surgeon to teach the riders how to wash their hands properly to avoid getting sick. They even painted the inside of their team truck white just so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might mess with the bike's performance. Now, on their own, these changes seem almost ridiculous, right? But when you add them all up, it led to absolute domination at the Olympics and 5 Tour de France titles in just 6 years.
So, if these tiny little improvements are so powerful, why do we fail so often when we try to change? Well, it's usually because we're focused on the completely wrong thing. We all tend to get obsessed with goals, right? Winning a championship, losing 20 pounds, whatever it is. But here's the kicker. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. The real difference isn't the goal, it's their systems. It's the processes they follow day in and day out. Think about it. A goal is just a momentary change. A system is what gets you long-term results. If your room is a mess, your goal is to clean it. Great. But if you don't change the system, the sloppy habits that made it messy in the first place, it's just going to be a mess again next week.
This quote from James Clear just says it all. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your goals can point you in the right direction for sure, but it's your systems that actually determine whether you're going to get there. Focus on the process, and the score will take care of itself.
But, there's an even deeper reason that our habits don't stick. We're always trying to change our behavior from the outside in. When real, lasting change, it always happens from the inside out. So think about change like it's an onion with 3 layers. That outer layer, that's your outcomes, your results, like losing weight. The middle layer is your process, your habits and systems, like going to the gym. But the deepest layer, the core of the onion, that's your identity. It's what you believe about yourself. Now, most of us, we start by trying to change the outside, the results. But the most powerful way to change is to start from the inside, with who you are.
Let's imagine 2 people who are trying to quit smoking. Someone offers them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." You see, they still see themselves as a smoker who is just trying to be something else. The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Whoa, see the difference? Their identity has already shifted. True behavior change is identity change.
And that's because our habits are literally how we embody an identity. Every single time you go for a run, you're casting a vote for I am a runner. Every time you write one page, you're casting a vote for I am a writer. These little habits, they provide the proof, the evidence of your new identity, and that's what makes the change really stick.
Okay, so we've got to focus on our systems and our identity. Got it. But how do habits actually work inside our brains? Well, it turns out they follow a really simple 4-step loop. First, there's a cue that triggers your brain. Then comes the craving, which is the motivation. The response is the actual habit you perform, and finally, the reward satisfies that craving and tells your brain, hey, let's do that again. It's always cue, craving, response, reward.
All right, now for the super practical part. Once you understand that little habit loop, you can create a simple framework to basically engineer your habits. Think of this as your personal operating manual for changing your behavior.
Each of these 4 laws lines up perfectly with a step in that habit loop.
So if you want to create a good habit, you make the cue obvious, you make the craving attractive, you make the response easy, and you make the reward satisfying. And what if you want to break a bad habit? Well, you just flip it. Make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. It's a simple, but honestly an incredibly powerful system.
So, all of this isn't just about hacking your life with a few new tricks. It's really about something much, much deeper. It's all about who you become in the process.
And this right here, this brings us to the most important idea of all. The whole point of building better habits isn't just to get stuff. The goal isn't just to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a book, it's to become a writer. You see, habits are not about having something, they are about becoming someone.
At the end of the day, your habits matter so much because they are how you shape your deepest beliefs about yourself. You literally become your habits. So the only real question left is, what kind of person are you casting a vote to become today?